All right, welcome everyone to our Fundraising Academy webinar today. I'm so excited to have all of you joining from all over the country. Welcome to this month's webinar, which today will be going over digital philanthropy, relationship building through online fundraising strategies. So I know that donors are consistently exposed to a great number of emails and digital touch points, but today we will be presenting some tools to help you rise above the noise and really make your organization stand out and showcase your cause's impact in a way that motivates your donors to give. So I know that with a digital strategy focused on relationship building, your fundraising teams can learn how to turn one-time gift givers into long-term loyal supporters of your organization. So we're so happy to have you here. A little bit about Fundraising Academy for those who are joining our webinar series for the very first time. Our cause selling education provides nonprofits and their fundraisers for greater measurable impact by providing learning opportunities designed to enhance their cause, their communities, and the world. So that is our mission here at Fundraising Academy. Again, we're so glad to have you joining from all across the country. Before we get started, I have a couple of notes for our guests today. This webinar will be interactive with the opportunity to ask questions during as well as in the Q&A portion following the presentation. So keep the chat going. Now that we know a little bit about you and where you're joining from, just go ahead and submit any questions that you have for the presenter in the Q&A option within your Zoom controls. Closed captioning is also available for this webinar, so we are always thinking about accessibility here at Fundraising Academy and want all types of learners to be able to access our content. So to enable this setting, go ahead and click the CC option in your Zoom controls, and caption size as well can be adjusted in the video settings under accessibility. And lastly, as we always get this question, in the days following the webinar, you will receive an email with a link to access the slide deck and recording to review again at your leisure. So my name is Sarah Wu. I am the program manager here at Fundraising Academy, and I have the pleasure of serving as our moderator for today's webinar and also introducing this month's incredible, amazing presenter. Adriana O'Donnell is the Director of Philanthropy at San Ysidro Health here in San Diego, California, where both of us are actually currently based. She is responsible for the oversight, planning, and implementation of a comprehensive fundraising program that secures financial resources from individuals, private foundations, corporations, and others to support the organization's safety net services and strategic plan. San Ysidro Health is one of San Diego County's largest and most well-respected nonprofit community health providers, caring for over 110,000 patients at 50 program and clinic sites, well beyond just San Ysidro's borders. Adriana has over 20 years of experience managing successful resource development and marketing programs for local, national, and international organizations. So please join me in welcoming Adriana. Hello. We're so excited to have you and presenting on this webinar today. So I will kick it off to you to go through our objectives for the webinar, and we can learn all about digital fundraising strategies.
Hello, everyone. Sarah, thank you so much for that beautiful welcome. I had to say, when you say 20 years, oh my God. What I started with when I was 10, I'm sure that you will believe me. But again, thank you so much. I really value this time to share some of my experiences. Digital philanthropy is very important in the role that I have for raising funds for San Ysidro Health. And I'm just so happy to be able to share with you those experiences. So as we go through this deck, as we talk about digital philanthropy, I'm going to give you stories. That's how I'm able to share with you in real life how I'm utilizing all of these tools that I'm sharing with you as we speak. Which is, I think, so valuable, because fundraising isn't what it used to be. So with that said, the objectives of this webinar is to utilize a positioning statement to showcase the great impact of your cause, of your organizations. We're going to develop digital strategies that support your annual goals. And we're going to create a program to raise funds through strategic e-communications using the technology that you have or technology that you'd like to have that serves your organization through periods of growth and change. So this is all part of the cause selling cycle, which is taught by the Fundraising Academy. And it is done in different phases to help give you, bite sizes of the best practices for approaching individual donors. Phase one is all the work necessary to prospect for qualified potential donors. Phase two is the face-to-face time with prospective donors. As you can see, that one takes up quite a bit of the pie, and it's very important to solidify relationships. And last but not least is phase three, which includes everything that happens after the gift, which starts the cycle again, because ultimately you would like your donors to continue to give to your organization. So first, I'd like to start with the positioning statement. And so I just want to share that your positioning statement is not your mission statement, but it is an extension of your mission statement. It is an opportunity for you to share what your organization is to your community, the impact. That's the way that I view it, and that is the way that I utilize it. So the actual definition is the marketing strategy of differentiating your organization in the minds of prospects and donors. So again, this helps you differentiate yourself from your competition. And I actually don't even like to call it competition because the need is great throughout the country. So just differentiating your organization and your mission, because we all do different things and we do it with our own flavor. Again, it's fast-paced and often stressful. So positioning will help you actually guide the conversation with potential donors and your current donors as well. So it serves as the foundation for your brand. And your organization's brand is more than your name. It's more than the symbol. It is created and influenced by people, images, the culture of your organization, the culture of the community that you serve, your style, perception. I mean, I can keep going on and on. It is your organization's known identity in terms of what services it offers and or the work that it does, as well as the essence of what the nonprofit stands for. So I'm going to give you a few examples because I think that that is very helpful. And if you'd like to share in the chat what your positioning statements are, we'd love to see it. I feel like sharing is caring, and the more we learn from each other, the better we'll be. So I have 3 examples for you, one from actually 2 from national organizations, and then I'll share my organization's positioning statement. So the first one's from Goodwill. I think we all probably have a great understanding of who Goodwill is and what it does. But their positioning statement is giving hope to individuals and families, helping them reach their full potential through education, work, and by giving them a hand up, not a hand out. Beautifully stated, and it's easy to understand. The next one up is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Again, national organization, and we have a pretty good idea of what they stand for and what their mission is. But this one, I feel like you need to pay attention to the language used. Crusaders for aggressive drunk driving policy and action, and national leaders in prevention and victim assistance. The language is so strong and also with conviction, yes. And this is how they choose to represent themselves, because they are looking at changing a system. So I think that that one's beautifully written and is easy for donors to understand exactly what they stand for. At San Isidro Health, we are very large in our community. We do lots of different things. So we have to figure out a way to say it in a very short way. So our positioning statement, and actually it varies depending on who you're talking to and what campaign you're representing. So ours is innovative and compassionate delivery of medical, dental, behavioral health, and specialty care services, allowing San Diego families to live healthy and thrive in their communities, regardless of their ability to pay. And I'm actually really proud of that because you know exactly what we do, how we do it, and for who we do it. So just a few examples. Again, feel free to put yours in the chat and let's continue the conversation. So again, positioning statement, very important. Online fundraising is digital philanthropy. I just want to make that clear. We have language, is maybe different, but it's still, it's the same. So what you see on this slide is the different forms of digital philanthropy. And I wanted to share that there are hundreds of ways to fundraise online. What you see in front of you is a few different types: crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, utilizing your social networks, which are LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok. I mean, the list is there, and in whatever capacity your organization feels comfortable utilizing. There's also email and website, which are a little older, but still so effective. So as mentioned, there are hundreds of ways to fundraise online. And you have to consider the size and scope of the internet. They can be vastly successful and dramatically underwhelming. So this is where I really want to concentrate on the positioning statement and making sure that we rise above the noise, yes? So I'm going to go through each one and I'm going to share how we've utilized it, how I've utilized it personally within my development plan over the years. And specifically for, a little thing that happened in 2020, the pandemic, which really turned us all on our heads and made fundraising very different from what we had planned through our development plans in late 2019. So first I'm going to talk about the difference. So the difference between peer-to-peer fundraising and crowdfunding is that peer-to-peer fundraising, you're relying on your donors, supporters, constituents network. So you are asking them to advocate for your campaign, for your organization, which goes beyond your database. It goes toward their connections, whether professional or personal. And it is a wonderful way to have a warm introduction to someone else's network. Beautiful thing is that it could be acquisition for you. They're new to your organization, new to your mission. Peer-to-peer fundraising does rely heavily on your technology. And that is something that needs to be considered when you embark on a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. Crowdfunding is more general. It's your website, or it could be a website that is dedicated to, collecting donations for you. And this one does not have, they could forward the link to their network, but it isn't specific to doing like you know, intentional, individualized emails or post for a person. So it's more generic. And crowdfunding could be specific to a campaign, or it could be about your organization's mission in general. So that one's more centralized with donations flowing through a single campaign page versus peer-to-peer fundraising, where it could be into individual campaign pages. So I told you the difference as far as peer-to-peer and crowdfunding. A plug for peer-to-peer, because I am very fond of it, is that, again, it leverages the network for your supporter base to raise more money. Again, a new network. And you can make it as big or small as you want. And you could be very intentional of who is a part of that peer-to-peer fundraiser. You
I
could
love
make
that,
your board.
Adriana. Actually, I think I wanted to pop in with some of the wonderful positioning statements. One of them I
Oh,
feel
yes.
inclined to share because it relates to that peer-to-peer fundraising feel of being connected to a community. So I wanted to elevate one of the comments we got in the chat from a Julie that says, I asked, what is your organization's positioning statement? And they work for KPBS. And
Okay.
so for them, the positioning statement shared in the chat was KPBS provides stories that make us think, help us dream, and keep us connected. And they say KPBS connects, reflects, and serves all of our communities with trusted programming and dialogue. So I just want to elevate that to our listeners today, just as Adriana is talking about both peer-to-peer fundraising and crowdfunding as an example of how you could use your positioning statement or one iteration of it for a particular use case. Maybe this one is a great way to engage folks in peer-to-peer fundraising because of the connectivity and providing stories.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And kudos to KPBS. What a great organization. But yes, absolutely. Exactly what you just said, Sarah. I'm glad you stopped me there, because I was going through the rabbit hole of peer-to-peer fundraising, knowing that
I know it's like our favorite.
Right. But I got to tell you, as far as the reason I love it so much is because you can make it as big or small as you want, and you can really be targeting a specific, group of your most loyal donors to do that for you too. It could be your board, it could be your philanthropy council. You could really have so much fun with it. So that's peer-to-peer fundraising and crowdfunding. Social networks. Again, that is your LinkedIn, your Facebook, and others. And here, I feel like for most organizations, you know your strengths. You know that it could be Facebook where you're strongest because you have the most followers, because it's really interactive with your followers. It could be Instagram. You tell your stories with your pictures, or it could be LinkedIn, which happens to be the case for my organization. That is where we have the most interaction, and it's where we really try to be intentional about what we share and also what the action is to the share. So I wanted to put that out there for you because you don't have to do all of the things, and also you shouldn't treat each one the same. Some it is focused on photos, which I just shared, which is Instagram. And others, you can really weave your storytelling and your positioning because it lends itself to that, which is, I feel, the case with LinkedIn. So that's the part about social networks. As far as email is concerned, there we're talking about e-communications. And email includes e-newsletters, how you share the impact of your organization, and including an ask, if that is how you utilized your e-communication, which is what we do. It could be very targeted emails to support specific campaigns, Or it could be emails that share, a story of how you impact a family, community, depending what your mission is. And other times it could be about awards that your organization recently received. I mean, you can really include many different aspects of your organization. One, to build your reputation, and also to share the impact of your organization, because philanthropy is trust-based. Next is the importance of your website. And friends, full transparency, our website, we're working on it right now. We're going to do a complete reboot because we've realized that we've outgrown it. And it is so important. What we've learned because of 2020 is that, and the pandemic, is that people inundated our website looking for information. Not only information about, vaccines and our clinics, since we're a health provider, but also how to support, whether it be in kind or through actual donations. And we had to keep that part of our website very updated. So your website shouldn't be static. You should have a relationship with your webmaster, and that should be a part of your communications plan, because that is probably the first place your potential donors or actual donors will go to get more information about what you're working on, if they don't do it through an email or any other source. So I just, that is something that we're working on right now. So as far as a story, I'm going to share with you what my organization did to support our operations, because the development plan as it stood in 2019 was completely scrapped come March 13, 2020. And what we decided to do was a crowdfunding campaign. We had the platform, which we had used specifically for event, to sell tickets and to, raise awareness about our events that we had planned. Turns out those events weren't happening anymore. So we pivoted and utilized this platform for crowdfunding. So what we named it was very simple, our COVID-19 Relief Fund. And what we decided to do was be very transparent about how COVID-19 was affecting our families and our region. And we did it in numbers and as real time as you can get, because the area where we are was affected 6 times more negatively, the families I'm talking about specifically, than other regions of San Diego. So we talked about, how we had to upgrade all of our clinic. I mean, the story was very involved, but we made sure to be transparent with every step of the way and sharing exactly what we needed. We need PPE, which were our masks, our goggles, all of it, because it was sold out everywhere, as most of you know. And we asked for support so that no family was turned away, because we also gave them PPE. We also, provided telehealth calls, which we had to completely turn around. So anyway, crowdfunding, very specific to COVID-19. And through our efforts, we were able to raise 627,000, I believe, or 650 by the end of the year. And it helped supplement what Philanthropy was committed to support that year in operations. And again, it came down to the platform that we used, utilizing our social networks, our email, and our website to all be a drumbeat for that campaign. So again, the positioning statement there is that we are the safety net. So anyway.
I love that story, Adriana. As you flip to the next slide to give you a little bit of a breather, and as our our audience sinks into that story, I love how you have told how we started with a positioning statement of your specific organization and went through all the different ways online digital fundraising can happen, but you can tie that story in to all the different avenues. So it's very exciting to hear the success story and kind of see how you built out this campaign. I'm looking forward to learning how that was done. Here we go.
Well, here we go. So these are the keys to successful campaign. And this is the best practice, right? As you see in the beautiful cause selling, the Sanford Way in the book. But as we all know, sometimes reality has a different way of, coming at you, and you have to be flexible. Today, I'm going to talk about these step by step, and then share with you how it was applied in an actual campaign. So the keys to a successful campaign, not only digital, actually, may I add, it's early planning, having a very distinct goal, your storytelling, multiple touches along the way, because you can't just rely on just a couple of emails. It has to be very intentional. Involving your major donors and the stewardship that happens after you receive that donation. Because again, we really want our donors to be a part of, us and continue to contribute to your organization. So I'm going to go to the next one and share, 3 phases of a campaign. Again, planning, then your execution, and the follow-up. Now, sometimes, you're asked, well, how much time should you allocate to planning, the execution, and the follow-up? And my best answer to that is it depends. It depends on how much time you have to plan. In the case of the example I gave to you about our COVID-19 relief fund, it was very short. But I made sure to include my team because I am one of the team, and also include our front-facing staff so that I can get those stories that need to be shared. So these are the 3 phases, all very well defined. Planning is key. It is because it's really hard to assign a goal without any information, any data points. So you want to evaluate your past campaigns. You want to define the focus and components of that campaign. You want to set target markets and segment lists. You want to set a goal. And you want to make a detailed task map with dates and gather your assets. In the case where you don't have a past campaign that's similar to what you're trying to do, I think that you can, well, I'll give you an example of this very specifically. In 2021, San Isidro Health was part of a new campaign called San Diego Gives. Now, I know that in many parts of the country, there are giving days specific to that community, but San Diego didn't have one. So we decided, well, why not us? So the San Diego Gives campaign is a digital philanthropy campaign, and San Isidro Health has never done that. So there was 12 organizations that worked on getting this special giving day up and running. And amongst us, we're trying to figure out what the goal is. And we had to really look within our own organization and our own capacity on what would be a reasonable goal. For many of us, it was unbudgeted as it was a completely new campaign and one that came together rather quickly in the grand, when compared to others that involve that many organizations. So for organizations like the Humane Society, their goal was 100,000, and they were able to look towards their past few digital philanthropy campaigns. And even though it was different, they're utilizing the same tools. For San Ysidro Health, we went back to our COVID-19 relief fund and the time frame and allocated, our goal was 10,000. We wanted to be conservative in that campaign and utilize the time period. And also it was just a different ask. The urgency wasn't as great. And then for others, they were able to get a matching gift donor, which is also very helpful and very motivating for individual donors as well. So again, you have to really look at your organization and what is appropriate for you. And I just wanted to share that as far as evaluating past campaigns, because I know that sometimes that isn't available. As far as execution, you want to build the campaign webpage. You want to send a save the date if there are specific parameters to your campaign. You want to do A/B tests on your emails. And you want to stay strong within the last few weeks, day to day. And what does that mean to stay strong? Looking at what your communications schedule is to your donors and potential donors. The follow-up is delineated by a double dose of gratitude, right? And I feel like in this one, it's the golden rule, right? You want to treat your donors how you want to be treated and thanked, and done so in a timely manner. You want to give them information. What did their donation do to impact your respective community or mission? You want to evaluate your campaign, because maybe this will be a reoccurring campaign for you. And you want to document. I don't know about you, but if I don't write things down, it's really difficult to go back in time. So this is a practice that is very valuable, especially as you're planning your development plan for the following year.
This is beautiful. I love this, the way it's laid out, Adriana, on the 3 different phases. But also, I wanted to highlight for our listeners, a thread I'm hearing in you is that you really integrated not only the voices of your team, but the voices of the community around you, either whether that's the San Diego community, or if you didn't have data from your last campaign, what data do you have from other areas of your organization? So these are all things I want to highlight to our listeners, because it really shows that anyone can do a digital fundraising campaign with a variety of different resources. So it's definitely something that you can consider for your organizations with this 3 phases checklist, and a variety of resources that you might not have thought of to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I did want to call attention to the slides. So some of it may be repetitive, but it's repetitive for a reason. And that is so that you can use these slides as a guide, so you're not furiously writing notes, and that this could be something as a resource for you. So again, goal setting, you define your goal, it will lead to better results. And also, philanthropy is a team sport. So ensuring that everyone in your organization knows what your goal is and can also be an advocate for that campaign is really important. So as you're looking externally, also think about your internal, audience, and ensure that they feel like they're a part of this campaign or your goal for the year.
That's a big point, I think, Adriana, to bring to this group, saying that, that defined goal can be something that's so valuable to not only your external constituents, but your internal staff members. But maybe what you've said makes me think of, say, does your board have involvement in this campaign? Sometimes they're your biggest champions, and maybe no one has asked them if they had a friend of a friend of a friend who wants to do the peer-to-peer campaign. So there are a lot of individuals, maybe your volunteer base, maybe your staff base wants to give back. Like, there are lots of individuals that can all benefit from that shared goal setting, that shared goal defining.
Absolutely. And sometimes, they are also donors to other organizations and have some insight. It's just a matter of having open communication. So again, what to consider: past year's performance, your target market and list. So I love that you named all of the different constituents, Sarah, whether it be volunteer base, your board, um, consider your language to them and what applies appropriately. And that's another thing. Language is so important, and being really intentional, clear, and honor their time. Your communication should be short and to the point, um, because you're one of so many different emails. And really, what we're trying to do with this particular webinar and digital philanthropy is to rise above all of the different emails and social media posts and LinkedIn posts that are out there. If my best advice is to really consider, your language, um, honoring your donors or prospective times with a length, and also be very clear about what the action is. Are you asking them to fundraise for you? Are you asking them to donate today? Are you asking them to donate and share? So that's language you should be using. Be very clear about it. And then your major and annual gifts asks, it depends on how you handle your campaign, right? So again, considering language, you may speak to your major gifts donors, because there's a smaller group, depending on your organization. I know for mine, the ask is very personal, and it is with a particular dollar amount in mind for their giving capacity. So it's not something that is done through a mass email communication. And do you have a match? I know that I mentioned it earlier, and it is very engaging and also motivating to know that your dollar will be matched 1-to-1, sometimes 1-to-2. And so definitely consider that as you're planning your digital philanthropy campaign. And another point actually in our notes is that remember that if you haven't sent an email to your list for 4 months, you aren't likely to have an overwhelming response. And this is major because your donors, your volunteers, your board should hear from you. And they should hear from you to know what the organization's up to. And that's just part of relationship building. So please consider that as you're looking at your communications. Telling a good story. Man, this one is so valuable. Your organization is doing incredible things. And like I said, philanthropy is not a team sport, and neither is your mission. So how do you get these stories if you're not the one that's, in front, on the front lines of your organization? You communicate with your frontline staff, and you talk to them about, what has made an impact to them as they're going out in the community. Again, respective to your missions. And for the most part, here, what made you feel great this month? What impacted you in a positive way? And we get some stories that really not only motivate us, but motivate us to share it with our donors. So, and we do that through e-newsletters, we do it through intentional e-communications, we put it on our social media posts, and we do it obviously with the permission of the family. And if that family is uncomfortable with sharing their name or photo, then we won't do that. We'll change it. But again, it really is about, how that dollar, how their support made a difference, and not just putting it in numbers, but making it about how it affected a particular person or family.
I love that.
Oh no, Sarah, I think you just froze. Okay. So
Adriana, like the
are you
real
there?
impact, right? The
Yes.
real impact.
Oh, Sarah, I think you just froze again, and I hope it's not me that's freezing too. Well, I'm going to continue then as far as messaging is concerned. So again, good storytelling is at the center of every good campaign and every good ask. As far as an online campaign, you could send multiple messages across multiple channels, as I just explained. You could also map out your story arc, making sure that you have like a clear call to action with every message. And that again goes to honoring your donors' time. Making sure that your message across various platforms is reinforced and strengthened. So it's like a drumbeat for your campaign. And I love this. Don't overcomplicate. Too much noise is a barrier to communication. So here's a little more about telling a good story, which may have several different messages. So when I talk about building, oh, what happened here? Sorry, no. Here we go. Okay. So this just gives you a graphic of what it is as far as, hi, Sarah, are you all well? Okay, good. Yay, we're back. So going back to storytelling, building your story arc to unify the messages and connect messages across emails and channels. Again, great practice as a philanthropy professional is to connect with your, colleagues and ensure that you have stories that you can share and that you, in fact, advice from me is to have a story bank of different individuals that have been impacted, or sometimes we're talking about puppies and kittens, and that's great stories too, by the way. So that way it helps with planning ahead. So my 2 cents about that. Yay, we're at community share. So community share, we want to hear from you. How do you currently acknowledge your donors? And what is your method for digital philanthropy?
Yeah, go ahead and drop your answers in the chat. And thank you all for your grace here. That had never happened before. So I'm happy to be back, but didn't miss too much. I know Adriana is great at telling stories, but we wouldn't know what your storytelling promise is. And we talked a lot about making sure the folks who get your messages understand the impact. So I am very curious how people are doing donor acknowledgements right now to share that impact. So go ahead and share in the chat. How do you currently acknowledge your donors? What are some different ways do you do that? Do you do that by mailing acknowledgement letters? Do you send them via email? What is your method for digital philanthropy when gifts come in via your website? how do you acknowledge those folks? I'm so curious to see what folks are doing. Adriana, I know that in the time of COVID, right, so much has changed. So much about the way we acknowledge donors can be different from year over year. We typically would say, oh, yes, you should be updating your acknowledgement letter templates, but what else could we be doing, right? We have, we have someone in the chat, Carissa says, social media tags and thank you letters. I love the social media tags idea. That's great for folks who are coming in digitally,
Right.
giving philanthropically online. I think it makes a ton of sense to consider tagging them on your social media. Thank you letters also are always key. I see that there. And I, a lover of the thank you letter, definitely think that's a great way to acknowledge folks.
Right.
We have some other folks in the chat here. Natasha mentions we include an impact story in our formal acknowledgements. Sounds similar, Adriana, to what you all do. But they have a matrix for different ways depending on gift amount. This ranges from handwritten notes to social posts to personal calls from staff, leadership, and board. And they also do a monthly stewardship email that is solely impact stories. Wow, Natasha, that's really creative and wonderful. Adriana, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those different
Yes,
acknowledgement avenues.
absolutely. So, Natasha, I'm so glad that you shared that. There are different ways to acknowledge your donors. And I think that, we all know the rule, right? Within 48 hours is what is the best practice for acknowledging your donor after receiving their support. But even that has changed because of COVID and also the methods in which we send it. So right now at San Isidro Health, we email our donors their acknowledgement letter. But again, weaving the stories into the email, and it's an email letter. So it's an attachment with a little note from us stating that we appreciate their support per respective campaign. I feel like in certain instances, if a donor has left you an extra note, sometimes there's notations depending on what your giving platform is that they send to you. We acknowledge those as well. People to people, people give to people. And so we make sure that we're, incorporating that into how we thank them back. But I'm going to go back to Natasha because I love this matrix. And I feel like if you have the personnel to help support it, I mean, imagine how having all of these ways that best acknowledge your donors, but very particularly, right? I love handwritten notes. I will open that time and time again over anything else, or anything that remotely looks handwritten makes me feel special. And I have a feeling that that is how many donors feel, or maybe many donors my generation. So I do that for specific levels of donors. I had a colleague at the food bank who mentioned that during COVID, he provided his signature in a small note and did 4,500 of them. And he was the CEO at the time.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right? It almost brought tears to my eyes because I'm thinking, you know what? At that point in time, it was needed.
Mhm.
People were giving because it was dire, and he took the time to thank them in that special manner.
I think yeah, that's awesome, Adriana. I love that's so personable, right? It's so personable when you say people give to people. We have another comment that I wanted to elevate from the chat too, from Juliet KPBS, that says, we have thank you Thursdays and thank people over the radio. Of course, not everyone can do that because you have to be a radio station, but I think
Right.
that's such a clever way to have a specific day, right? That You can acknowledge folks in a public manner. So maybe folks in the room can see themselves in that, whether or not your organization is a public radio station. Maybe you have thank you Thursdays for your CEO to write thank you notes, or for your volunteers to write some thank you notes, or for your staff members to call some folks. That can be part of your gift acknowledgement matrix. So there are a lot of different areas, I think, where we can all, as a community here in this webinar, learn from each other, even though our organizations are different. We have another chat that I wanted to mention before we move along to the next section, is that we have a staff member who calls, Michelle says, we have a staff member who calls all new donors within 24 hours. Acknowledgements go in the mail for check donors, and donors who have restricted projects get personalized reports. It sometimes depends on the level of giving. So there's a ton of different ways that you can utilize your resources, whether you have a staff member, whether you have a volunteer who loves to get on the phone. I love the personal touch of, acknowledgements going in the mail for those who give a written check. That makes a ton of sense as well. Knowing your donors and knowing how they gave, what method, can really help you with your acknowledgement process. And I think that leads up into the next part of our section. We're also getting some love for that CEO who wrote / signed all those thank you notes. Could definitely be a great Thank You Thursdays idea on social. Thank You Thursdays is another great idea for social media. So we're all learning together and enjoying the chat here. So thanks all for participating in our community share.
Absolutely. And so creative.
So creative.
For your respective organizations. I do love the idea of the social media thank you, if you receive your support in that way. So thank you for sharing that as well. Great. So that leads us to our keys to donor retention. And again, it's about how would you want to be treated too? Donors are choosing your organization over so many others that have wonderful missions as well. So these are our keys to retention. Think like a donor. And what does that mean? It means, you're being able to share with them how their donations make an impact. There is a fine line between badgering a donor and actively fostering a mutually beneficial relationship with frequent contact. And the real difference comes not from when you follow up, but how. There are 3 keys to donor retention, which are these. Actually, did I put the third one up here? Let me do that right now. Great. So think like a donor, say thank you like you mean it. And what I saw in the chat, you mean it. And that is wonderful. And treat everyone like a major donor. And I do have to say, again, this is a wonderful webinar because we're looking at organizations across the country, and we're all different. Some of us have large development philanthropy programs and staff, and others are a one-person show. And so I think that knowing that, how you thank your donors really is how you're best able to do that through your organization. So I just wanted to be clear about that what works for San Ysidro Health or KPBS may not work for a much smaller organization. But knowing your resources, like your volunteer base and your board members who may be super passionate about your mission, or any other thing groups of people, constituents, may be helpful in thanking your donors. So the 4 P's of follow-up. I'm just going to put these all up here. Makes it much easier for me. So there's lots to be said about being prompt. And again, the rule of thumb is 48 hours. But again, full transparency for us during the pandemic, that was really difficult because we were in emergency, you know, a state of emergency. So what that looked like was emails and within the week. That's what we could support at the time. And the reason that happened is because we had to do temporary layoffs, and it did affect our department. So, although it's a rule of thumb, it really depends on the time and whether you can support it. A thank you is better than no thank you. So, just wanted to share that as well. Personalized. If your donor is giving because of a specific campaign, and just to throw an example, say it's for, you know, it could be cat healthcare. I'm just throwing it out there. Let them know about the different cats that you have. Let them know how many you've done. I mean, really personalize it to why they chose to give to you. That probably wasn't the best example, but anyway.
It works, and we also have one of our wonderful folks in the chat, Natasha. It works at the Charleston Animal Society.
Okay.
And had shared a little bit about their positioning statement, which they're working on.
Okay.
And the fact that, they say since 1874, the mission of the Charleston Animal Society has always been about the prevention of cruelty to animals. And so with the positioning statement, I know you're working on it. We had some great conversations in the chat, but that's an opportunity to be personalized in your acknowledgement. Maybe the person who donates to your organization is a longtime donor because they know you're one of the oldest societies. And then another note that Natasha mentions is in personalization, we use things like that, like how many animals we've taken in or the number of animals that have been adopted. So these are all different little tidbits from the storytelling that you can use in personalization. So it was a great example.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. And the other thing I would, so I'm partial to cats, love cats. So if I'm giving to an organization for a particular campaign that, is about cats, then getting a photo.
Yeah, it's a great way to personalize it.
Yes, and actually I have been thanked via video. And I got to tell you that I saved it. And to me, that was wonderful to see my donation in action. And in some missions, some organizations, that's totally appropriate. So again, that is one of the memorable ways someone, personalized it to me in my giving. And it was passionate as well. And I have to say again, language is huge. And being able to share with your donors, your constituents, impact and why your organization is so important in that region is valuable. So prompt, personalized, passionate, positive. I know that in years past, sometimes, as far as fundraising is concerned, dire, emergency, urgent is part of the messaging. But I want to let you know that positive is also very effective. Donors want to give to organizations that has stability, that they know will be there for their respective missions. And I feel like that is a point of positivity, of being able to take care of those affected by your mission in a responsible way, in a transparent way. So I really love that is there. Okay. So prompt again, send the message as soon as there's the 48 hours rule of thumb. But again, I would say that if you are unable to do prompt, then the other P's definitely are worth their weight. And I'm talking specifically to the smaller shops
Yes. Thank you is at any time is better than no thank you at all. Definitely. And I know that this is a phrase you use, Adriana, but like a PhD in grace is important, right? Give yourself the gift of grace when it comes to something like this. If you don't have the stewardship matrix in place, maybe that's something you can build in the next year, in the next development plan. So these are things we want all of you to have as takeaways, no matter what the timeline is.
Yes, exactly. A PhD in grace. Okay, personalized, again, writing directly to your donors, referencing their gift, including the amount. There's no question that that letter was meant for them or that acknowledgement was meant for them.
That one's a very important note because I need to see less thank you letters for dear friend. I would love to see a name of your donor on an acknowledgement.
Yep, yep. And passion, being passionate, warmly convey the gratitude and explain how their funds are making an impact, how they will be used to soak the passion that prompted the contribution. And again, there's that stories, being able to tell them what's happening at the front line. And again, positivity. I won't go back into that, but I do want to summarize and also call out a specific point that I didn't mention earlier, which is very important. And that is your digital platform. Digital philanthropy, you need a digital platform that works for you. And there are many out there. So, my best advice is to look at your network of professional philanthropy, your philanthropy network, your AFPs, your colleagues in the field, and see what they're using. I know that that's what we did, and we actually changed from a digital platform that we had been using to a new one this year that best served our organization for our size, our budget, and also introducing new ways to fundraise digitally, one which is a text to give function that has been very successful for us. So wanted to share that as well to really do your research in that regards because that can make a big difference for you. So in summary, your organization's mission and positioning statement can showcase the great impact of your cause. Again, research your digital platforms. This is your resource. So this one is very important. Build a successful online fundraising campaign. Again, the planning, the executing, and follow-up. I would even add communication. Language is important. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. And one of the things that you should also consider to rise above the noise is even what your subject line is. When you send out those e-newsletters, when you send out those emails, they need to be very to the point so that they'll open it. Because again, you're one of many. Be intentional with your storytelling. Storytelling is important. That is a way for your donors to know exactly the impact that you're having in your community. Listening to your donors. Yes, a phone call is very important. In fact, I think with the pandemic, we had to go back to basics and do the phone calls and do the Zoom calls. Well, that's not really a basic, but it's an evolution of the phone call. And taking it to heart and follow up. Follow up is key. You need to be prompt, you need to be personalized, passionate, positive, and consistent. Can I add that to it too? Consistent. That's also very important.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the summary, Adriana, of that amazing presentation. I'm so glad that we had such an interactive chat and so many great responses to our community share. I wanted to thank you, Adriana, for your time. You know, digital fundraising indeed is here to stay. We've seen that through some of our chats and acknowledgements moving to social media. Lots of different ways to still keep your donors engaged, but I do think it's so important to keep that storytelling going and listen to your donors, right? Loved how all of these examples are happening at San Ysidro Health as well. So on this slide, I'd just like to remind our guests that the recording of this webinar, as well as access to a library of all of our past webinars is available on our no-cost online learning portal, which our technical wizard here, Fundraising Academy, which is our coordinator, Faith Martin, has put in the chat how to register for that at no cost. You can explore this digital resource for you to help further fundraising efforts in your community. And then last but not least, we are going to move into formal Q&A. So if you don't have, if you haven't already, go ahead and open up the question and answer box in Zoom. Go ahead and submit those questions that you have for our presenter, Adriana. While you're typing in your questions, just wanted to give everyone a friendly reminder to this group that Fundraising Academy offers these interactive webinars just like this for idea sharing and community every month, and our next one will be December 14th, where we will be learning 6 foundational tools for today's fundraising professionals with an instructor who you might be familiar with, Miss Tamika Franklin. So that is also coming up, and right now we're going to move right into Q&A. So Adriana, I have some questions here from our audience. The first one comes from Janice, who I think had to hop off but can view the recording as well. But on that technical aspect that you were talking about, thinking of what to consider for platforms, she asks specifically, what platform did you use for crowdfunding? And then for the second part of her question on the San Diego Gives campaign, who was the main driver? So I see those two questions playing together. Like, how do you decide what platform is useful for crowdfunding? And then what different constituents do you help to get the ball moving?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say that there is many out there. And currently, so San Ysidro Health specifically has used Classy, Mighty Cause, and GiveSmart. And Mighty Cause was used for San Diego Gives, and we switched from Classy over to GiveSmart for all of our campaigns. And we decided to do that because we needed a text to give option, and also because of budgeting for the number of donors, actually for our entire database and what we're trying to achieve. That one just made the most sense, and we really did our research. And by we, I'm talking about our incredible database and research specialist on staff. And we were able to compare them side to side. And we had been using Classy for years, specific to events. But now that we are so focused on digital philanthropy and also fundraising to text to give, this just happened to be one that's better suited for us. As far as Mighty Cause, I can tell you that for San Diego Gives, it works beautifully. And it works beautifully because, we're one of many organizations that are part of San Diego Gives, and each of us have our own platform within that one, I guess, one account with Mighty Cause. And so it just lends itself beautiful to that type of campaign. Where you can see right away, who's giving to you. You could link on Mighty Cause your social media platforms, and you are able to think right away and get the data so that you can put it into your database. So it just works well. But so that's my 2 cents on that. We did our research, and we also asked around our colleagues to see what they're using.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, Adriana, this is what these webinars are for, and we hope to continue the conversation with you all in our future webinars. But also, I would say ask your peers in your region, right? We have a national audience here. There may be areas of the country that work really well with a particular platform because they do have a big text to give presence there, or they have a big support presence in that time zone. So there are so many different ways to consider which platform to go to. So I love all of those notes, and again, want to accentuate the fact that every organization is different and your needs.
I think we lost your audio, Sarah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Apologies. I don't know what is going on today, but just highlighting that. And I think it's great to think about lots of different ways to choose your platform. The next question we have is about storytelling. So Natasha asks, we held a campaign for preventing animal cruelty. However, we accomplished this in several different ways. Would it make more sense to tell the story of these in different ways or keep the central focus? So this is a great campaign building question when there's different ways you go about doing your program, but how do you kind of keep it in one campaign? I think, Adriana, you could have some examples from San Isidro Health. I know you have a lot of different programs, but how do you keep a campaign on track?
Oh, we're doing that as we speak. And so I can tell you that at the moment we are raising fund. Our campaign is called El Zapaton, which means the big shoe in Spanish. And most people don't think about, shoes as a way to healthcare. But in this case, it is. So we are trying to have our pediatric patients come back to the clinics. Many parents are hesitant because they don't want to expose their children to COVID or God have you, so many different reasons. And so we noticed that our numbers for pediatric services weren't as high as they used to be pre-COVID. So El Zapaton. And we are actively raising funds so that we can provide a shoes for health wellness event. It's an actual event. And so that's very different from all of the other campaigns that we're running that are specific to services. This one's a community event. Again, shoes for wellness, not something that you would think would make an impact, but has and does. So for that one, we were very intentional about our stories. We went again to our social services team, to our pediatricians, and to our frontline staff. And we asked them, what family has made an impact on you? How, what is a story that has come up through your, providing services or in whatever respective role they have in the organization? And we were able to compile it. So if you go to our social media accounts, which were on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, you'll see that there's our stories. And they're a part of the bigger campaign because we're talking about pediatric services and how it's impacted a specific family. But it all goes back to El Zapaton and being able to provide the shoes for wellness. So that's a real life example. Our goal for this year was 50,000, and we are just we have $9,100 to go.
Awesome.
But storytelling, that's how we're driving it.
Yeah, I can see that, how storytelling can be the way you keep that central focus, Natasha. I would say, and I note, I see here as a second note, should specify it was a peer-to-peer campaign using TeamRaiser Blackbot. So that even actually helps you in this case, that maybe you are holding one peer-to-peer, overarching campaign, but each independent fundraiser has their own story to tell. Right. I might ask your peers, right, that are asking for folks to give, to share their take on a particular story that you have determined as the fundraiser that is your common thread.
Or it could even be why they feel so passionate.
Why? Yes, why they're passionate. I love that. I absolutely loved it. I think that's a great tip for all to take back to peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, asking your constituents like why they got involved. Awesome. I'm going to move to the next question here from Christine, which is a great question for any size shop, especially a shop that has differing resources. So Christine asks, I want to circle back to the advice of treat everyone as a major donor. it sounds good in theory, but isn't realistic. We have 5,000 plus donors every year because of a third of our budget is raised through peer-to-peer swimathon. So there's no possible way that a staff of FTE 2.5 can treat everyone as a major donor, unless that means paying no attention to truly major donors. What can you say about your suggestion that could help them in practicality? I think this is a great question and really useful for a smaller size shop that raises a lot of money through peer-to-peer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my experience with peer-to-peer actually isn't through San Isidro Health. I worked for a national organization that had a walk. And actually, it was the American Lung Association. Big shout out to them, to us, because I still feel very tied to the mission. But I feel that through the slides, this is the best practice. But again, reality is different. So we are using it as a guide. And my best advice, based on my experience at American Lung Association with thousands and thousands of different walkers that were sharing their stories about why American Lung and why they were walking in support of our mission, is utilizing your technology to help you. And this is where consistency comes into play. And this is where, if you're able to plan ahead and share your stories and be consistent about them, maybe you reach out to them every other week, and give them another passion point, that story, why it's so important that they're walking for you, and why it's so important for them to, or swimming for you in this case, and why it's so important to continue to reach out to their peers. Have you sent out that email? What is the action? So I feel like technology can really help you stay consistent and also share those passion points, those stories that are really helpful. And yes, major gifts donors, you have to have a plan specific for them, at a different level, because they're making more of that transformational gift for you. So we're not saying to treat everybody exactly the same, but to elevate the experience so that they'll continue to give to your organization because they feel appreciated, because they feel well informed, and because they know that they're important enough for consistent messaging.
Yeah, I think I would highlight that as well, Adriana. And I also from my experience working in a grassroots type organization that also had a walk. So similar to a swimathon, consistency is key, and have your technology work for you. Whether that's something as simple as like an email mail merge where you have dear first name and a mission moment statement and maybe a picture in an email, that can be a really a light lift on the part of a staff member, but could reach hundreds of donors in one mail merge send. So that that consistency is key. And I think in our best practices, when we talk about treating everyone like a major donor, the way that I hear that often is treat them like a person, not a number. Treat them like a valued part of your organization, whether they're a donor that has given annually a few times, maybe they come to the swimathon every year. Get that data to work for you, Christine. I would say, like, look at the giving patterns that are from your swimathon, but can you segment that in a way, and like Adriana is saying, storytell in a way that makes sense. Maybe we take those donors and put them in 3 different buckets, and some of them get quarterly updates, some of them get every other week updates just based on their donation amount. So there are lots of ways to think through how technology can work for you. And when we say treat everyone as a major donor, we mean to treat everyone like they're valued outside of the swimathon time. People are going to want to hear from you, not when the swimathon is right around the corner, but maybe like after it occurred. What has your organization done throughout the year? Not during that time, not during swimathon season. I think that would be really meaningful for your constituents to hear some of those stories on a more consistent basis, or a basis that works well for you and your staffing. Yeah. Okay, I think that may be all of our questions that are in the open Q&A. Feel free if there are any other questions out in the chat, please let me know. But otherwise, I do want to just kind of get Adriana's take on that note about getting technology to work for you. I was curious to go back to one constituency we only touched on very slightly. We talked a lot about our donors that are coming in through maybe an event, our donors that are coming in through social media. But what about your donors that are maybe already at your organization, those staff members, those board members, those people who have received services? I know that San Ysidro Health has a few different ways of keeping them updated too and engaging them to make sure they feel loved, just like even a major donor would feel empowered.
Well, we do have, we're on the larger side of an organization. We have 2,400 employees,
Mhm.
and we do have a campaign specific to our employees.
Oh,
But realizing that we're so large that some of the stories that have been shared in one part of the organization is very different from the other. Like, for example, dental versus pediatrics versus
ah,
social services. And the list goes on. So we have an internal e-newsletter and we share quite a bit. We share our needs. We share our stories. We share recent accolades because we want to be proud of where we work. And we should be because we're doing amazing things. So being able to celebrate. So we share that internally. And we also ensure that our board is well informed. And also we also have corporate donors and we reach out to them regularly in a different way as well. So we
that's
do take a look at
awesome.
our different constituents. Yeah.
I
Um,
love that. I was just kind of curious from my perspective, looking at you as a healthcare provider, really, that what can we do to take some of these amazing digital fundraising strategies that we talked about as fundraisers and share them internally as well as externally, right? Like there are so many ways for people to support, and there are so many ways for people to feel connected. And so I want
absolutely.
our audience to know that, even within whether you have a small team of just a few, it's important to celebrate success, whether or not your team is sprawled throughout many different departments like Adriana's is. I've worked in small institutions where maybe the development team is 7 people, maybe it's 3 people, maybe it's 20 people, but maybe those individuals want to feel connected to the mission as well. And the positioning statement that you might send to them might be different as well. So there are all these different ways to connect through digital strategies is, I think, where I'd love to leave our Q&A, that there are ways to connect that keep your organization running and sustainable, but also help you fundraise on the grander scale in a digital way. So thanks, Adriana, for answering my question.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it comes down to the technology and making sure it works for you, right?
Hmm.
And not forgetting that your employees are also your constituents and some donate to the cause as well. So making sure that they're a part of your acknowledgement, process
That's
as
right.
well, and that it's appropriate for them.
Yeah. That sounds great. Well, I think that may be all of our formal questions. So I believe that is taking us to the end of our presentation. I know that some folks had to jump to go to other meetings, but I think that might be our last slide. Adriana, I want to check if there's one more slide
Sorry,
that
I'm
we have.
lacking on this end. Oh,
Yep,
it's just
this
me.
one. I'm like, this one is quite important. Before we let everyone go that last 5 minutes, I do want to share in the spirit of connectivity, whether you're connecting with peers in the chat or you're connecting with your staff members about your campaign goals or connecting with your donors in a digital fundraising strategy. Adriana is a wonderful resource to all of you. And so I'd like to put her LinkedIn up here just so that those who are interested can take it down. Again, in the spirit of community, if you are always reaching out to any of our presenters here at Fundraising Academy, we recommend including a reference to today's webinar to sort of extend a LinkedIn connection so that Adriana knows that you came from this program. But we're so excited to foster relationship building skills to help build your network. I want to thank everyone for your continued participation in our Q&A, your great questions that fostered a lot of thinking on my part, at least, and helped Adriana share a few more stories about what is done at San Isidro Health or at any of her other wealth of 20 years of experience. And the last housekeeping tips that I will share is that you will be receiving a link to access this slide deck for your review at any time and a recording follow-up in an email in the next couple of days. And if you want to have easy access to this webinar and all of our past webinars, you can find it online at our online learning portal, which is available at no cost to you. So thank you, Adriana, for our presenter, for joining us today. Thank you, Faith Martin in the chat, who has been the wonderful individual as Fundraising Academy, sharing many links to great resources from our program. And thank you, our audience, for your time, for your participation. I know it's the very busy end of year, so I'm very grateful on behalf of Fundraising Academy to have spent the time with you, getting to know you from all over the country and your wonderful organizations, from KPBS to our wonderful humane societies and animal societies and small shops, big shops. There's so much that we can learn from one another. There are so many things that make us more connected than different. So it just helped us to continue and improve our monthly webinar series. I wanted to note that you will receive a survey link after the webinar ends. So if you could take a few minutes to complete our survey, that will appear on the end of the webinar screen for you. I hope that this has been valuable. I hope that all of you are safe and healthy during this fall time, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for all you do in your various communities. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.